All right. Good morning, everyone, or afternoon or evening, depending on where in the world you are. Welcome to American Graveyard Podcast live here at Red or Green Books. I am your host, Marissa Prada. I'm joined with my co host, Angie Williams Brown. And so good to have Artemis Craig in the house as a support. So thank you so much, ladies, for being here today. It is April 5th, 2025. Today's theme is Weathering the Storm, Protecting Yourself Against Gun Violence. As we get going today, I'm going to go ahead and do what I do every opening podcast and read our mission statement as well as the disclaimer for the show. So you can't say you didn't know. Now you know. American Graveyard Podcast Live is an international collection of artists who come together in a unified global call for an end to gun violence. Each month, we will cover a different topic centered around gun violence. The podcast is composed of facts, opinions, personal stories, local and global news and events, historical information, and other such matters. We will list where information was obtained and do our best to ensure the citations are from reputable and true sources. This is a free speech, not a hate speech zone. The disclaimer for today. This podcast will discuss topics that may be graphic in nature and are unacceptable for some audiences, especially children. The discussions may include firsthand accounts, videos, audios, photographs, articles centered around gun violence. The opinions and viewpoints expressed during the show are not necessarily the opinions and viewpoints of every host, guest host, special guest, Red or Green Books, or The Word is Right. Viewer discretion, listener discretion is advised. All right, so let's get going today. Don't forget, you can grab your copy of American Graveyard at the website, redorgreenbooks.com, Red, R-E-A-D. This is our 200-page literary anthology, Volume 1. We are in the works for getting Volume 2 assembled as we speak. We also have American Graveyard, the art book. This is a 50-page full-color art book, including poems as well. Between the two books, there are 20, I think it's 27 states and 8 countries represented between just those two books. It is an incredible show of force from around the world, even more countries in volume 2 than we published the first time around. It is amazing. We also have a sponsor, a senator program. If you would like to send this book anonymously, we will send it on your behalf anonymously to a U.S. state senator of your choice. And it's only $15 to do that. Oh my God, let's go. If anyone watched Senator Cory Booker's behemoth marathon on the Senate floor this week, it was incredibly moving. I wished he would have touched just a little more on gun violence, but he did touch on it. I do not have clips today of that, but we have dedicated our 30 for 30 writing to Senator Booker and his mammoth marathon on the Senate floor. So if you were not inspired by that, go back and watch at least the highlights, please, because it was absolutely incredible. All right. A big shout out to Alexis Garcia for the namesake of the anthology, of course. Thank you so much for that. Some rules for today. Pretty easy. There's not a lot of people in the room. No hate speech, no bombing or misusing the chat here in the Zoom. Please stay muted while others are speaking. Also, if anyone does come in the room who we do not recognize their name or their name is not a name, it's like iPad or something, we must verify who they are if they are to stay in the room, and they must update their name. And we welcome discourse, but it must be civil, and we must have civil dialogue exchanges in this podcast. Okay, last week we talked about women and guns. It was International Women's Month. We did talk about women and guns. If you are a woman, you need to go back and watch that podcast, please. It is incredibly informative and special and important that we continue to tap on women's rights and protect women through the course of not only what we're doing with Red or Green Books, but of course this podcast. And today we're going to be talking about protecting ourselves during gun violence. I'll share a quick story. I have a lot of YouTube videos to get to today. Angie has prepared some things as well. We only have a little over an hour today for this podcast, and then I am needed somewhere else in the city. So we don't have as much time as normal for the show. But I will say it quickly. I took my daughter to her very first concert last year. And it was at a venue it was not an outdoor venue, it was an indoor venue. And it was an upstairs, downstairs, 10,000 people it was massive. And there were one, two, like only four exits in this indoor venue. Okay, when we were upstairs, looking over the railing down at the concert, lots of people on the floor downstairs as well to kind of paint the picture of, how this was set up. And as a mom, but also as a gun violence advocate, I was thinking, well, if this happens to have a mass shooting event or something happens, it's going to cause a mass panic. And people are going to get jammed up at the doors and people get hurt and die there. So I was looking around upstairs and I had a plan A and a plan B. Plan A was to hide because you can't run and we don't want to fight unless we have to. So find a place to hide if we can't get out safely. Okay. And so the first plan was to hide behind the bar. If that didn't work or there was too many people hiding behind the bar, there were some huge roll out freezers. They were on wheels. I knew that they were totally mobile. I said, we're going to go hide behind that. We're going to wheel out and we're going to pull it back on top of us. We're going to hide against the wall until it's safe to come out. And I told my daughter this. Now, I'll preface it by saying my daughter was 14 at the time. Okay. So she wasn't super little, but she wasn't quite grown. But I have serious conversations with my children about this in a way that allows them to still not feel scared, but to be vigilant, especially because I'm raising girls, right? I'm raising women. We women have to be extra freaking vigilant. So, so I told her this is the plan. If anything happens, we're going to do this. If we can't do this, we're going to do that. We're going to call 911 immediately and we're going to stay quiet and stay still. And it was really heartbreaking for me as a mom to have to prepare my daughter for that. But part of our job is to prepare our children for the world we live in today, not the world we grew up in. And so, certainly, the world has changed a bit since I was young. And so, today, I'm going to open with a striking commercial from the Sandy Hook Promise. And then I have also two videos to show you. We had some mass shooting incidences here in New Mexico recently. There was a mass shooting in Las Cruces, which is the southern part of the state. New Mexico State University is my alma mater. That is the city in which I lived in. Young people getting together at a park unsanctioned for a car meet-up, exchange of gunfire. Young people carrying assault-style rifles out and open in public. There was a confrontation. Young people started shooting. People died. And now the youngest person arrested is 15. So we have to kind of consider, right? And I will acknowledge, especially my privilege, that there have been a great deal of these events for decades and decades within other communities, right? Within communities of color, within inner city neighborhoods. Like this is not anything new for many people in the United States, okay? But where I didn't grow up there, but where I went to college was a small kind of college town. We didn't have a lot of these things happen down there. It was more border issues because it's 30 minutes from the border. So there were other issues, but they were more border related than mass shooting. And this is the fourth mass shooting between El Paso, Texas, and Las Cruces because they're so close together. In recent history, the fourth mass shooting. The one previously was a few years ago where a guy walked into a bowling alley and just started shooting. It was a weekend, families there, kids there, and the school for the deaf was there. And of course, you can't hear if you're deaf. So it was crippling at the time. And no, now here we are grappling with another mass shooting in Las Cruces. And I have a video about a road rage incident that happened the other day here in Albuquerque that resulted in shots fired at a Walmart parking lot. We deal with this all the time in Albuquerque. Shots fired on a daily basis here, okay? Like, I live in a city where guns are a thing and no one gives a shit, apparently. All right? So we're going to cover a lot of that. And then I've got a couple of news clips. One is this is a training video for active shooter in school, which I think is important for everyone to watch because you need to know what these teachers and administrators have to go through. You need to know what your children go through at school. And you need to know if it happens at your school, what they're supposed to be doing. Because we have found, and Uvalde was evidence of this, that sometimes law enforcement does not do what they are supposed to do in an active shooter situation. So you as a parent and you as a taxpayer need to understand what is supposed to happen if there is an active shooter to school. And then, of course, there's to finish today, there's a news report with a specialist who trains people in how to survive a mass shooting. I do hope and pray that this podcast will give you some education, some knowledge, some tips and tools, and perhaps some training, maybe some things you didn't know that you can take with you that might save a life down the road. Angie, do you want to weigh in before I go into this first quick commercial?
Yes, you were talking about looking at exits and finding places to hide. And it's a shame we have to do that before we go and enjoy ourselves. But here we had a mass shooting in a mall. And it was really devastating because in a mall, especially if you're going walking down the corridor in the mall, there's nowhere to hide, and there panic is everywhere. And I thought that okay, we hadn't had that, so I'm like, oh, okay, maybe that's not going to happen here because I had already heard a year or so ago in South Africa they had a mass shooting in a mall, and they're not as equipped as we are. And these guys, this militia came in, and it was horrendous. And they actually showed this in a documentary, and it was very disturbing. And then when it happened here, and nobody knew what to do, and
Right.
we still have not had any type training on what to do when there's a mass shooting. And the sad part is when they have them here in the colleges, even though they go back and practice ain't the same as when it really happens. Because I've been in a situation on a college ground where uh, we had prisoners to escape. We live maybe, I want to say 5, 6 miles from the prison. And I mean, it's not like you can stand there and just open their door. They'd
Right.
escape, and they escaped and came into our building. No one was prepared for that.
Yeah.
So training is good, but when action comes down, the most important thing is to remember what you were learned, what you taught, and what you practiced. And most people don't, even policemen don't.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, they run drills and practice all the time, and some of them still fail, right? They're still human, which is not an excuse. But a lot of times, especially post 9/11, I feel like if you have one person, one regular civilian step up and take a leadership role and begin to move people towards a solution, you will find more people will move with you. We look at during 9/11, the plane that went down in Pennsylvania that they think the passengers rallied to take down the person who was trying to take over the plane so that it wouldn't go hit the White House. Right? That was something that they thought that
Mhm.
people will rally together. We see people take down active shooters now. We see people take more initiatives, and we'll
Mhm.
see it in the last video today. Where the guy tells you, run, hide, fight. Your fight is your last option, but it's sometimes your best option to neutralize the shooter because a lot of times these shooters are not going to be prepared for adults to rush them, to take them down, to throw something at them, to intervene at all. So what we'll see towards the end today is that no, I'm not encouraging people to do that. I'm just saying that this is part of the run,
Mhm.
hide, fight song, if you will, that we are now having to preach to our children and have in our schools and
Mhm.
have at church because we know mass shootings now at church. There,
Churches.
no place
Mhm.
is safe, right? No place is safe. And
Mhm.
gun violence will affect everyone at some point.
Mhm.
No one is immune from being affected by gun violence.
Mhm.
So it's important, we keep doing this and we keep sharing the podcast and we try to get the podcast in front of lawmakers and people who can amplify it. And I do, again, I apologize for my voice. It is coming back, but it's just, I was really sick in the hospital and my vocal cords are still not totally healed. So I hope I don't get too overworked, that I can still speak and it won't be too bad. But here we go. I'm going to go ahead and do a share screen and share this commercial. And this is from the Sandy Hook Promise, and it is on YouTube. Uh, Give me just a second.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I needed for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class. These colored pencils, too.
These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
And I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
I cried the first time I watched it. Okay. I cried the first time I saw that. It was such a short space of time, and it was so powerful. Um, what are your thoughts, Angie, on that? On the commercial,
If only it really worked like that.
right?
If
Well,
only.
kind of is going that way. Children are having to take care of their friends now who are bleeding, and they're having to use basic classroom things to defend themselves.
But in actuality, you have less kids doing that than you do more. And in every instance here, the kids were so afraid.
Yeah,
They didn't do anything but try to run or something. Someone was so scared they couldn't even move.
yeah,
And especially if you see your friend, this is your friend, somebody you've hung out with, somebody you've talked to, and they have a gun, and you're gonna stand there frozen like an adult would, trying to figure out why, what, when. Oh, they wouldn't hurt me, and they do.
Well, I believe the commercial was supposed to be somewhat satirical, right? It was
No, it
meant
was
to,
a good. I loved the commercial
yeah,
because
it's
they
meant to be
would
a little
actually.
more,
The kids need to see that. That's a
yeah,
commercial that kids need to see because in that commercial, the adults were not in control. The kids were.
right,
Kids, instead of them doing so much training on how the adults should react, but they're not training the kids. So there are more kids than there are adults in any school. So they need to train the kids on how to react. That's a commercial that the kids need to see, but at the same time, understand if your friend got a gun, your friend pointing at you, don't act like you Rambo and run up on them because if they point it, they'll shoot you.
right.
If
Absolutely.
you can. Now, I don't get me wrong. There was an instance here where in a one of the Waffle Houses, this guy came in. He held up this Waffle House, and he had hostages. And this guy was hiding, but there was a lady there with children. And the only thing he thought about, he didn't know these people, none of them. The only thing he thought about was not the mother, but the kids. And he said he don't know what happened. He don't even remember doing it. He tackled this guy, knocked him down, got him down, and everybody was sitting there like, that was brave. He said at the time, he felt like it was the right thing. He said, but after it, he sat there and thought about, man, how stupid you were. You know, how many people gonna do that? And there's only one other time that, now, please forgive me, but this one actually was funny. The guy decided Christmas time he's going to rob a Dollar General. So they overtook this guy. They stripped his clothes off. They duct taped him and sat him on the sidewalk and called the police. Now, it's not ha ha funny, but the way that was done, that was funny. I'm like,
Well, they
nobody.
wanted to immobilize him, right? They didn't want him to get away. Duct tape's pretty powerful.
But
I
to
mean,
take his clothes off, they stripped him naked and duct taped
I
him.
think that's a great idea because you
It
know he doesn't have
was.
anything else on him, right? And you know he's not gonna run. Someone's gonna see that. Like it's gonna stick out like a sore thumb.
Right. It was a great
It's a little
idea. And
funny,
it
but
was
it's also
literally, they
really
put this on
good.
the news. They put this guy duct tape on the news. And it was like, it made it feel like, okay, there is something I can do. That was something that really stuck out because the first thing you're going to do is, hey, we could have done that. And I want you to tell you, I don't know if I would have done that, but I want you to know that I thought that was pretty courageous and pretty cool.
And once you rally enough people to help you intervene, solutions like that become more plausible. They become, possible. Artemis says you never think about your actions until after you have a moment of clarity after the fact. And this is so true because we have so many mass shootings as a society, we and a population and a neighborhood and a city and a state and whatever, we're able to kind of break things down and consider what would our actions be. Of course, we never really know how we're going to respond until we're in that situation. So we can say up and down and in and out all day long, hey, I would respond like this. But you don't know shit until it actually happens to you. Okay. But you can become educated. You can run drills. Just like you would have a fire drill in your home, you should have an active shooter in your drill in your home. If you don't talk to your kids about how to get on a fire, y'all need to do that. For sure, that's a baseline minimum thing. You have fire drills at school because if there's a mass fire, you want to be able to get everyone out safely. Why would you not do that in your home? And while you're doing that, why, we talk about what would happen if someone got in our home. We talk about locking the house, securing the house. What does it take for our house to be safe and secure? And then what do we do if there's a fire? What do you do if there's an active shooter? Because last May, there was a drive-by shooting in my house and a 5.9mm rounds went into the side of my house, one through in my bedroom window, 6 a.m. on a Saturday, just feet from my bed. So what do we do? How do we process that and how do we protect our family? Well, I mean, you can never be 100% protected in today's society. There's too many guns. There's too many idiots with guns. But what do? You can protect yourself by ensuring your house is safely locked up. We're not leaving doors and windows wide open for anyone to come in. And, you're keeping yourself as safe and your kids as safe as possible.
What do you do
That's
though? Marissa, what do you do though? Here we've been having issues where, they have no knock warrants, which is the worst thing you can have.
the worst thing you can have.
And they kick this door in, and you at night, you kick this door in, nobody knows what's going on. Dude shot
Exactly.
one of the police, but they shot an unarmed person, and come to find out it was the wrong house.
That is what happened to Breonna Taylor.
That's what I'm talking about.
Taylor. It happens. This is why no knock warrants should be completely eliminated.
I think they did it. They got rid of it here.
Absolutely. But I mean, and you live in a very rare red state, right? In the South and Tennessee, Texas, or Tennessee, Kentucky, very
Alabama.
red states. Yeah, the whole South, right?
Mhm.
And so unless again, they're not doing no knock warrants on affluent white neighborhoods. Not really, because white collar crime, they don't give a shit about that. And if they do, they walk you down. They don't arrest your ass. And even if they do, and you're someone like Mangione, you just cowardly shoot someone in the back of the head. People pay hundreds of $1,000s to help him defend himself. It don't freaking matter. unless it affects you. And it won't affect you if you're in an affluent white neighborhood. Let's be real about that, okay? Like, I live in the ghetto. I like living in the ghetto because my shit usually does not get messed with. All right, you will drive by my house and never knew you drove by my house. If that idiot who unloaded on the back of my neighborhood that day, it just happened to be my house was there. But it happens all over Albuquerque. Not in the affluent white neighborhoods, but it's starting to creep up in there. And those people are starting to get mad. And I'm like, well, we've been saying this a long time now. So,
Your mic is crackling. You got a crackle on your mic.
Oh, is it better now? Is my voice probably too?
No, it's not your
Anyways,
voice, it's your mic.
okay, is it better now? It might be an internet thing because the internet is funky weird. And there's a big windstorm right now, and sometimes that makes my Wi-Fi go weird. All right, so let's do this. I'm gonna show 2 videos from shootings here in New Mexico. Recent shootings as early as a couple days ago. And the only reason I'm going to show you the whole news clip is because I want you to have the backstory to it, because we have a lot of road rage incidences here in Albuquerque. I don't know, maybe about 10 years ago, there was a road rage shooting between two big trucks, 2 men, I'm sure big egos on the road, right? 2 men in trucks driving, getting into it, okay? One truck, guy shoots into the other truck, shot and killed Lily Garcia. Lily Garcia, I think she was like 4. Y'all. And then there's still more and more and more. Like people forget Lily Garcia and what she died from a shooting in her own truck that her father was driving because of a road rage incident. Like, these kids are dying left and right here in Albuquerque. And people are still getting into damn road rage incidents. So I'm going to show you the road rage incident that happened a couple days ago. And then I'm going to show you back to back the shooting that happened in Las Cruces, the news on that. Because both videos are very graphic in that they depict the sound and the video of the gunfire. If you have never experienced this, I hope you never do, but you should get pissed off about this. You should be rallying for change because this could have been your friend, your brother, your mother, your son, your sister, your daughter. Could be you. Just because it hasn't been you yet doesn't mean it doesn't matter to a lot of people. So here we go.
Details on the Walmart shooting off I-40 in Coors.
We had this as breaking news last night. Albuquerque police telling us about the victims and suspect. The department says they arrested Kendall Lowe and say he was the man who started the gunfight. Officers say it began as a road rage incident on I-40. 3 vehicles then drove into the parking lot of the Walmart. Police say Terrence Lowe got into an argument with another man, which turned into a fight. Terrence's brother Kendall would then pull out a gun and start firing at the man, his father, and his brother. Well, the brother fired back, killing Terrence, a viewer capturing the fight. Police say security guards from Walmart detained the men until officers got there. The other men involved are not facing charges. Police say this could be justifiable homicide.
And we're going to turn now to that newly released video, the moment gunfire rang out in the deadly mass shooting in New Mexico. Chief National Correspondent Matt Gutman joins us with the latest. Good morning, Matt.
Hey, good morning, Rebecca. We now know that 2 groups of people at an unsanctioned car meet had a dispute and opened fire. Police say they blasted 59 rounds, hitting their targets, hitting bystanders. And those videos and the 911 calls are blood-curdling. They give you a sense of the chaos of those moments as first responders try to administer aid to the victims.
This morning, that chilling new video of the moment that gun battle erupted in Las Cruces, New Mexico. which left 3 dead and more than a dozen injured. Gunfire shattering the night at this unsanctioned car show, where authorities say a dispute between multiple gunmen from opposing groups escalated into a firefight at a local park.
Oh my God, I just witnessed murder.
Frantic 911 calls detailing the horror.
Young Park, people got shot. Young Park, Young Park.
Police body camera video rolling as officers treat multiple victims, including a woman who was shot in the neck.
Stand up. You're gonna be okay. I need you to calm down, okay? Okay, breathe.
Police recovering 59 shell casings from the scene. And authorities pointing to videos like this one where men can be seen brandishing AR-style rifles outfitted with flashlights to illuminate car stunts.
There's a lot of stuff that's happening at these car meets that is extremely dangerous and irresponsible. Guns are involved where they're just out, they're used for different purposes, and no one bats an eye.
4 suspects, all but one of them juveniles, currently behind bars on murder charges.
And one of those suspects is only 15 years old. Now, New Mexico's governor has said the state needs to address the soaring rate of violent crime, especially among juveniles. In Las Cruces alone, violent crime has spiked 46% just in 2024. Rebecca.
That is a staggering statistic. Okay, Matt, thank you.
Okay, so I will see the first video was from KOAT 7. It's a local news reporting, a local news station here in Albuquerque, in New Mexico. And the second video was from GMA, Good Morning America, both on YouTube. So if anyone wants to go and find those videos, that's where you'll be able to find them. 59 rounds, 3 dead, over 12 injured, AR-style rifles with flashlights. No one bats an eye. The youngest suspect is 15 years old, and violent crime in Las Cruces is up 46%. So these are just to kind of show. I mean, it's not just here. It's not happening just here. It's happening in a lot of other cities and a lot of other places, and it's been happening for a long time in a lot of other places. But being that we're a company that's built in New Mexico, that is run by a New Mexican, that publishes New Mexicans and gives, cares about things that are happening in New Mexico, I wanted to really spotlight some of the things that were happening here in recent history. Angie, do you have any comment, any feedback, anything you want to say about that video? And then I'll go into the others.
Those videos were heart-wrenching. And the thought of you being in the middle of a parking lot and you have elderly, disabled, you have children, adults, even though you're an adult and you know what to do, if you're like me, who's just had hip replacement surgery, laying down on that ground, rolling up under a car is not an option.
No, getting down to getting up is not something you can do.
Right.
And this is a very good point. We should totally do an episode, Angie, a whole episode of when you have a disability, how do you, being disabled in a gun violence situation. And I think that's an incredible topic. That is a whole podcast in and of itself.
Just think about if you're in a school and nowadays, like in Antioch where this kid killed himself, they have elevators and for access for your kids. Well, when there's an active shooting, they lock off the elevators. If you lock that elevator off, did you really think about a ramp? Is there? I've been in that school. There's no ramp.
Mm-hmm.
But it should be where every. I just retired from Tennessee State University. And I worked in maintenance. Yes, thank you, Jesus. I worked in maintenance. I was assistant to the AVP. I had to work with all the departments, especially our 80, our disability areas. And there were a lot of areas where we had to fix because we had a shooting on campus. They had literally. We had those our department actually was the one that was over teaching how to prepare yourself for an active shooter. We taught the police department. They went and did training at the police academy. We looked like the Three Stooges and the Three Little Pigs all in one. They just nothing.
Yeah.
And the best part of that was, no, maybe that wasn't the right word. My office is off campus, my building, but it was up high and I could see the whole campus. And I was sitting there watching people just running around, and all I could do was pray.
Yeah.
It's not. And those kids, we had several disabled kids. We had the ramps, we had everything. But can you imagine the kid that does not have a motorized wheelchair, and you're trying to roll, you're trying to push? The only other place you can run to is maybe the bathroom. They took the doors off the bathroom instead of doing what they were supposed to so-called meet the requirements for, getting into the bathroom doors. They took the doors off the bathroom. So where are you going to hide?
Right. And in this video that I'm going to show you, I was actually pretty stunned. And I was the PTA president of my daughter's elementary school. And because I have two kids and they're pretty, like 4.5 years apart, I've been at this elementary school for over 10 years. And my youngest now is in 5th grade, and she's going to be leaving. This is our last year at the elementary school. But before COVID, I was in the school volunteering 2-3 days a week, every week for years, to be in the classroom to support my children. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about teachers and administrators. I learned a lot about children who are dangerous, even in elementary school, things that blew my mind. Counselors searching backpacks of elementary age children because they posed a danger. And that was when I had already had a bunch of heightened awareness because Newtown had happened. Okay. And I always wanted to make sure that if I was there, we're going to do our best to protect the children. And I think a lot of my fears were reason why also I wanted to be on campus. I wanted to be in the classroom. And I remember going to art class and going to music class and doing all these things and looking around at these classrooms saying, where are the exits? If we have to lock down, what do we do with the children? What is plan A, plan B, plan C? How do we barricade the door? Can we get out or not? If we get out, where do we go? Like, these are all things me as a mother and a volunteer were going through in my mind. And then they started active shooter drills. And so I've been present during many Code Alice's in an elementary classroom. I have seen it. I've written poetry extensively on it. I've done slam poetry performing it from the point of view of the teacher and the student because I've seen it. I've experienced it. And so, I don't know if the solution may have to be to empower the children. How do you do that in a way that doesn't cause them to be afraid? To cause them to have higher anxiety levels, higher depression levels, higher fear. How do we allow them to be empowered without traumatizing them? I
Kids
think
like
these
to
are
be
really
heroes, remember? Kids like
is
to be
it
heroes. They think that they're superheroes.
I do not think many of them feel that way. I do not think many of them would emulate that behavior either. Most of them, in all the situations I've been in, have followed the letter of the teacher to the T. They've followed the energy and the instructions of the teacher to a T. I never witnessed in the classroom a rogue kid wanting
No,
to
no,
go
no,
be
no,
a
not a road kid.
hero.
No, 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 no. That's not what I mean. Um, just like when a kid does something really good, and kids like to please. And
Yes.
when you tell them, oh, hey, that's really great. And to them, they're being the hero. To them, they pleased. And that's why you see those kids doing that. And if you can give them some type positive reinforcement, yeah, you can get them to do that. You can.
And I think, like, personally, I think empowering them to take a leadership role is not necessarily take down the shooter. Like, I don't want to train a bunch of elementary kids to take a shooter down, but I do want to teach them to be calm, to be able to give direction and triage a situation if they need to with their friends, because their friends are very influential. To
Hmm.
the friends, kids can influence each other very well. But if a teacher is doing their job correctly and they have the attention and respect of their classroom, all the kids should fall in line and follow the adult. To me, it was interesting because this video shows the extent to which teachers and administrators must learn to go to protect their students. If you have not thought about this, maybe you don't got kids, you don't really care. I don't know, but you should care even if you don't have kids.
Hmm.
You should care because they're human beings involved in this incredibly dangerous thing of going to school. And when there's shooters on campus, this is what they have to go through. And so I would encourage people to have a little empathy, have a little heart, open your mind a little, and learn something, because I certainly did. And it's a shame that we have to ask school administrators and teachers to put their life on the line and to respond as if they were law enforcement officers or first responders, and that's not their job. Teachers shouldn't have to be afraid to lose their life to go to school and teach our children. So it was a very eye-opening video for me. It is the active shooter run, hide, fight video. It's was produced by the Santa Ana Unified School District. It is on YouTube. It is published by the Vision Star Media. And the entire title of this movie, and we won't watch all of it, but it is about 10 minutes. It says active shooter preparedness training for elementary schools. And the reason this is so long is because they break down run, they break down hide, and they break down fight. And they talk extensively about each of those, and they show you, kind of like the commercial. They show you a demonstration of what all that is. Um, let's see. Let's see. Oh, okay. So, and Artemis, do you want these read out loud, or is this something for the room? Because I want to respect your responses, but I also do want to speak them if there's something you're wanting me to share. Here,
Uh, can you unmute?
Let me see if I can ask her to unmute. Maybe that'll be easier for her.
Can you hear me? Unmute, Artemis. Unmute. Unmute.
Let's see if that helps.
Do you want us to just read your text?
Oh, I can read them. Okay, very cool. I did not want to ignore them, but I also wanted to maintain an essence of privacy if that was your intention. So, Artemis writes in the chat here in Zoom, those videos were really hard to watch. It saddens me that my grandson and I had to go to the park after school. When I was watching the video, I envisioned myself and my baby in our park, and this breaks out. Exactly right. And then she also wrote, my grandson was a second grader. He was suspended because he had a bullet at school. He was willing to take the fall for another student who had a gun in the home and brought a bullet to class to show the other kids. And this is so valid, right? It's a valid and I would even argue a normal childhood thing, because children are very curious. They see something that they know is maybe not normal. Maybe it's not something that they have in their house, and they want to show someone. Maybe, they don't necessarily want to show their parents, but maybe they want to, ask their friends or ask their teacher or ask their counselor. And I always tell children, find a trusted adult, whether that adult is at school, whether that adult is at church, whether that adult is your parent, your aunt, your grandparent, your whatever, your older sister, brother, cousin. Find a trusted adult who you can talk to about this, because bringing a bullet to school I don't think is an abnormal thing. If a child is curious, you're talking about a second grader, 7, 8 years old, who doesn't really know what the gravity of the situation is. But hey, maybe I can find some answers around my people I see for, 6 hours a day. So it's important to acknowledge that children are going to be curious and ask questions. If you're not creating a space at home where they can ask questions, then be prepared for them to ask questions somewhere else. And don't shame them for their questions. It's important we talk to our children about gun safety, gun violence, what to do when you find a gun, when you find a bullet, if someone ever gives you one to play with or touch. These are important things to go over with your children as part of gun safety. If you don't like guns in your house, that's valid. If you like guns in your house, that's valid. But if you have children in your home, or children are going to be accessing your home, it's your responsibility as the adult to maintain a safe space and to train everyone in your home about gun safety. If a child had access to a gun, that gun was not safely stored. If that child brought a gun to school or was accessed a bullet and brought a bullet to school, they found it somewhere, and usually that is in the home. And that is the responsibility of the parent or the gun owner, period. End of story. There is no wiggle room for that.
Kids don't know that bullets, even though they're not in the gun, they're still considered live rounds.
They're
If you
live ammunition.
if
And
you if they were to throw that bullet into the wrong thing, a
Yep.
fire or anything else, it's going to shoot just like a gun.
It is full of gunpowder. Like, it's an
Yes.
explosive. And these children have been traumatized by guns. And so having a bullet around some of these children who've gone through these things is also a re-traumatizing event.
But you have to remember too, we have so many kids that live in the inner cities. They live in the projects, and I'm not making that a bad thing. I'm saying that that's a common occurrence in a lot of them, not all of them, but in a lot of them. That's a common occurrence. So a kid seeing a gun, kids like role models. Their role model is going to be what? The dope dealers.
Exactly right.
And then
And
you
you
look at the TV, their dope dealers are getting away with shooting people they don't know or they don't understand. TV's not real. Then they come back and see somebody in their neighborhood. There are a lot of neighborhoods where seeing people get killed in the streets every day. Kids are, it's no big deal because they see it all the time. So it's going to be hard to train them because they don't understand it's no big deal. That's all they see is no big deal because, oh, we do this all the time.
And that we have a podcast coming up that talks a lot about that. So my counter question, to people who think it doesn't matter would be like, well, one of the things I want to do on this podcast is bring in ER trauma surgeons and doctors, as well as EMTs and paramedics who treat gun violence victims at these shootings. Because what if you got shot and your doctor was complacent because they see gunshots all the time? And they're like, oh, he's probably going to die. He's probably going to die and bleed out. So let's give him subpar care. Let's not push meds. Let's just wait for him to die. He's already lost too much blood.
That does happen.
You see what I'm saying? Well, no. So this is definitely something, especially within poor communities and communities of color. We have seen subpar medical care, absolutely. But my point is, overall, when you take the Hippocratic Oath, and especially if you're going to be a trauma surgeon and an ER doctor, a paramedic, an EMT, a nurse, whatever, you're working in the field. Your job is to triage that patient and get them to the hospital as soon as possible.
Unfortunately, that instead of it being the Hippocratic Oath, it's just the Hippocratic Oath. Because
And it
some
would be
doctors are hypocrites.
interesting to find out what the statistics are on how many people are shot by gun, shot with bullets, that go to a hospital and don't survive their injuries, because a lot of them don't. But what kind of injuries are them? Like, people don't really understand that a gunshot wound is really almost like a death sentence. But it doesn't mean that people in the hospital should give subpar care. That should never happen. So if it's happening, if it's something that is happening, it's something that needs to be researched. It needs to be brought to the attention, and we can cover it on this podcast. And I would go and seek out medical professionals to come and comment on that, because it should never happen that an EMT shows up or a paramedic shows up on scene and they go, well, so when someone's already deceased, they may not start life-saving care. If they're already deceased on scene and they're COD, they're 10-7, there's nothing you could do about it. They're not going to try to resuscitate someone. But if someone is still alive, even if they're bleeding out, they will do everything that they can. They should do everything they can to save that life. Oftentimes, gunshot wounds leave more than one hole in a body, and they hit more than one organ, or they bounce and ricochet, or break apart within a body and create a great deal of damage. And this is something for a different podcast, but the survivability, that maybe that's the theme, the survivability of a gunshot wound, because it's really not something that is easy to live after having had happened to you. The
When
human
you
body
shoot,
must have all systems working perfectly to sustain life.
but when you shoot one person, you shoot the whole family.
Yes,
One person
absolutely.
dies from gunshot, the whole family dies. It's not just
And their
one.
paycheck dies, their love dies, all of their
Everything.
advice down the road dies. Like it's everything. It's everything. But that, yeah, and that is, we have a lot of great topics to cover on this podcast still, and that, I think that would be a wonderful topic, Angie, that we could do. So we'll add disability to that, and then we'll also add the survivability of a bullet, because physically the body can't sustain gunshot wounds, not really, and especially not without intervention. We know this because they knew Uvalde. If they would have gone into that classroom immediately, they would have saved a lot more lives, because people exsanguinated, they bled out, they weren't able to get care. And another thing that we covered recently on one of the podcasts is there is a mobile blood bank now that is being implemented in some cities with major gun violence issues, where when there's a mass shooting, a mobile blood bank will get dispatched, because immediately you need that blood. You can only lose 4 pints of blood before you die. I think it's 4. I think the body only has 6 or 7, right? So you can only lose so much blood before everything stops working. But if you can have a blood bank on scene and hook someone up to an IV and pump blood into their body immediately, they can still lose blood as long as they're receiving blood.
But you remember now, they're not gonna let even the paramedics on scene until the policeman clears, because I've seen them do
Well, this
that.
is true. But the police have to go in right away. No matter what, you're supposed to go in right away and eliminate the threat.
What was the
That is
operative word in your sentence?
But so,
Suppose.
anyways, the blood bank will be on scene so that the paramedics and the EMTs and the first responders can get blood hooked up into someone immediately. Because as
The
soon as
reason
that
I'm
shooting,
saying this is because I did witness it. It was
and
not
what year,
something
Angie?
I
What year was
witnessed fighting.
that shooting?
I remember I witnessed a shooting in a parking lot, and it just happened to be a Walmart parking lot. And I wasn't sitting that far from it. And I heard this noise. I went, who just hit something? And I looked up and I saw this guy in front of this car, looked like he was doing cartwheels. And it
Yeah.
dawned on me he had gotten hit. Well, the guy that hit him jumped out. There was a black guy with this pistol and he's shooting. And I'm sitting there, my grandbaby was in the back seat. She was sleeping I didn't take her out the car seat because she was asleep. And
Yeah.
I'm reaching back, trying to get her head down without breaking her neck. And I called in the store. I told my daughter, I said, they're finna lock the store down. You need to get out now. And so they wouldn't let her out. So she told them that me and her daughter was in the car. It was hot. I was sick. I had just called her. That's the only way she was able to get out. But the sad part was that it took 20 minutes. The rescue was sitting there. It took 20 minutes. And the problem being, you have a lot of jurisdictions that are crossed.
Yeah.
And the news was so inaccurate, and I knew it was inaccurate. I was sitting there. They said that boy shot them. He didn't shoot him. He was shooting down at the ground. And they said they found this guy hiding around the building. I'm like, there's no way you found that guy hiding around the building. It took you over 20 minutes to get there. So,
I mean, even in 20 minutes though, like even within, so unless you're hitting an artery or something like that, within 20 minutes. So if it's a muscular injury or like a grazed wound or something like that, even within 20 minutes, you can still save a life with supplemental blood. Uvalde, it took him 76 minutes. Okay, Uvalde was like over an hour. It was an hour and a half. It was crazy. So when that's too long, there's no way you can sustain life when you're bleeding, even if you don't have an artery bleed. If you have an arterial bleed, you have seconds to minutes. I mean, really, you cannot come back from that, because even if you put blood in that, it's going to come right out. Okay,
You get shot in the back.
an arterial injury, the survivability is non-existent unless it's in a hospital, but they can get you right away. Like, we have to be real about the mortality of our bodies as human beings. But I think this is interesting, right? So there's all these Walmart shootings, and I was like, while you're telling the story, I want to see, does Walmart still sell guns? Here's the answer, and this is from corporate.walmart.com. We sell firearms and ammunition. Walmart sells firearms in approximately half of our U.S. supercenter stores. While we are not the largest volume firearms seller in the United States, we do serve many areas of the country where there's a concentration of hunters and sportsmen/women. I would like to see if that's a verifiable statistic, because I don't think that it is per capita of the most people who go hunting. All right, let's be real about that. I don't think that Walmart has the most guns where there's the most hunters. I think it's different. But I want to know, and Walmart is one of the companies rolling back DEI, for example. What the hell is their comment on all of these mass shootings happening in their damn parking lots? It has to create a lot of red tape for Walmart. It's got to create a headache for corporate, but they still going to sell them firearms.
They are, because you remember you got the, what is that, the National Rifle Association?
Yes, NRA.
Yeah. They don't you, I mean, Walmart, upper echelon, 9 times out of 10 are members.
Absolutely. I wonder how many, watch, let's look. How many Walmart super centers are in the US? So it says there are 3,560 total Walmart supercenter stores. So there's about 1,600 stores in the US that sell guns. I'm willing to bet most of them are in Texas and the South. That's going to be my guess off the bat. I don't know that. That is just my speculation. All right, we're going to keep going because I don't have super much time today. This video is titled Run, Hide, Fight, like I said. And I may skip a little bit if the parts start to get kind of redundant, but we'll see. And then I will go and play the How to Survive a Mass Shooting, because the first one is the elementary school active shooter training. The second one is the mass shooter training. I think both of them are incredibly important to learn for everyone on the podcast and to continue to think about as time goes on, because none of us are hermits and live inside our house. We all go out in public, and none of us know how many people exactly are strapped and carrying in the stores where we shop. All right, here we go.
There's an active shooter on your campus. You hear the gunfire, the screams, the voices in distress. Your only objective is to keep yourself and your students alive.
Get the box.
You have just moments to react. What do you do? In this presentation, we'll look at your 3 best options to surviving an active shooter attack. You can run, you can hide, you can fight. Let's begin with the first of our 3 survival strategies. Run. No matter where you are during an active shooter attack, if it's safe to do so, your first thought should be to escape. Always have a destination for your escape route. Ideally, it should be off campus, away from danger. You'll want to put as much distance between yourself and the active shooter as you possibly can. The run strategy is only appropriate when it doesn't put you or your students at greater risk. You must first try to determine your proximity to the shooter. If you see the shooter is at one end of the campus and you have the opportunity to run the other way, take it.
We are going to leave the room.
Leave all belongings behind.
Leave all your materials right where they are and line up quietly.
Keep everyone quiet. Your leadership will guide your students through their escape. Form the group into a line. Make sure your cell phone is silenced. Prior to fleeing your classroom, check the area outside. A small mirror can help you see outside while still providing you safe cover. Leave only when you're certain that you have a clear path to escape. Follow the selected evacuation route, keeping everyone together in a group. Along the way, you may encounter others. Prevent them from moving toward the shooter's location and take them with you in your escape. If they will not join you, continue with your evacuation. Always move toward protective cover. This could be anything such as a wall, tree, or a vehicle that can serve as a shield. Don't wait there, but continue on to the next cover point along the route. Put as many obstacles between you and the shooter as you possibly can. When you reach an area you consider safe, call 911 and report the incident. Remain together until told otherwise. You may need to use a window to make your escape. Know if the windows in your classroom open wide enough to allow you and your students to pass through. If not, be prepared to break a window to escape. And if you're located above the first floor, think about having a process for lowering your students to safety. To best prepare for a window break, it's a good idea to keep a pair of work gloves, safety goggles, and even a small hammer in your desk. If you need to break a window, first move your students away from the window. You'll require something heavy, such as a fire extinguisher, to cause the break. Strike the glass where it's weakest, near one of the bottom corners. It may take several strikes. Use the hammer or some other object to clear away any large pieces of broken glass. Clear away the bottom sill and place jackets or a blanket over the area to avoid any cuts. Use a table or chairs to help with the exit.
Okay, kids, we're going to go to Building A. Go to the side of the building and wait for me.
Identify an area for your students to run to and wait for you.
All right, take it easy.
Assist them out the window opening. You should be the last person to exit the classroom. Use the hide strategy when safe evacuation is not possible. Hiding involves seeking cover in as secure a location as possible. We want the shooter to either bypass our area completely or make it too difficult for him to seek us out. Hiding is very similar to our existing policy of lockdown. It can involve a number of tactics.
8 and 3 more.
Attention all faculty. This is a school emergency. There's an active shooter on school grounds. Please take all precautionary measures.
Stay silent.
We want to make our area appear unoccupied.
Right where you are.
If it's safe to do so, lock your door.
Christian.
Shut and lock all windows.
Blinds, please.
Put heavy paper over windows and draw your blinds and curtains. Turn off the lights.
Be quick. Pull that desk right in front of the
Build
door.
a barricade to restrict entry into the room.
Move the chairs. Stack them up by the door.
Use tables, chairs, desks, bookcases, any items found within your classroom that you can pile or stack in front of the doorway. The heavier the items, the better. Create protective cover for students to hide behind by turning tables or desks onto their sides. If possible, hide students in utility closets, restrooms, or any other areas within the classroom. Noise can alert the shooter to our location. Make sure to silence your cell phone. Everyone must remain quiet. Admittedly, this will be difficult as the noise of gunfire and other cries will cause fear and anxiety, but work to comfort and quiet your students. We come now to our survival strategy of last resort, fight. If your proximity to the active shooter is so close that neither run nor hide are viable options, then you may need to take active aggression against the shooter. Your objective is to incapacitate the shooter. Our tactics are not brute force, but rather speed, surprise, and focused aggression. Now, fight is not a requirement of any school district employee. It must be a personal choice, one based solely on survival. And fight is not justification to violate the zero tolerance policy of the school district concerning possession of weapons on a school campus. If you have no other alternative but to fight, here are some points to consider. Stay out of the line of fire. Use cover and concealment to your advantage whenever possible. Speed is critical. If you can, approach the shooter from his side or from behind. Use your full strength and aggression to deflect the weapon away from you and others. When you strike at the shooter, aim high, targeting his eyes, face, or throat. Use your knees to give a shot to the groin. Instruct your students to run to safety. Your primary goal should be to temporarily disable the shooter in order to make your escape. Fight can also entail the use of improvised defensive tools. You'll be surprised how many are within your reach. Textbooks, chairs, or other classroom objects can be thrown at the shooter as he enters the room. A fire extinguisher can be used as a heavy club or a spray to disorient or disable the shooter. Within your desk are sharp objects such as scissors, or even consider using a heavy object such as a skateboard to defend yourself. It's important that you never presume that someone else has already contacted 911. Even if law enforcement has been notified, your additional information will help the responding officers. With the first reports of an active shooter, law enforcement will rush to your school in force. They'll most likely group into small teams. They may be heavily armed. Their first objective will be to stop the active shooter. They won't stop to help the injured. Because they may not know how many shooters are on campus, they'll treat everyone with caution, including you and your students. When you come across an officer, obey their commands. Raise your hands with spread fingers to show you don't have any weapons, and put down any items you're carrying. Follow the officer's orders on when and where to evacuate. Having an action plan in advance of an active shooter incident is your first step toward survival. Begin by taking a physical inventory of your classroom. Identify possible ways to escape, such as doors or windows. Note materials you can use to construct barricades or provide safe cover to hide behind. And catalog the possible items that can be used for self-defense. Map out your evacuation routes. Because we won't know where the shooter will be, we'll need to create multiple routes, each leading in a different direction.
Know where all the routes in and out of it are going to be?
Together with your fellow teachers and staff, as well as local law enforcement, perform these same exercises for common areas. Run, hide, fight on a regular basis. The more it can become second nature, the more confident you'll be should an active shooter ever strike your school.
And let's get the blinds on the windows.
Sadly,
Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and show you the what to do in a mass shooting event out in public. This is more adult oriented, and this is from KPRC2 Click to Houston on YouTube, and it is titled "How to Survive a Mass Shooting." It's only a few minutes, and then we'll do a quick do a quick talk about how we feel about this, and then we'll finish up here in about 10 minutes total. So here we go.
hundreds of people were inside that nightclub when the gunman began shooting and taking hostages. What if it was you inside? Channel 2 investigator Bill Spencer here now with how to get out alive.
Yes, Dominique, well, we don't have the time to go into a full defensive class right now. We just don't have it. But there are just a few key moves that you can make that will greatly increase your chances of survival if you're ever caught in an active shooter situation. The basic rule is just this: keep moving. Don't stay in one place.
It just keeps on happening.
No one can tell me where my son is. If he's been shot, if he's dead.
It was just one after another, and the cops were yelling, "Go, go, clear the area, clear the area."
The deadly massacre in Orlando, the latest unspeakable tragedy involving an active shooter with a gun.
Worst thing you do is nothing.
Now, under the guidance of Jim Napolitano, former Secret Service agent to 4 different U.S. presidents, we're about to show you several things you can do to survive an active shooter situation.
We've all got to die.
Scenario number 1, the shooter enters a restaurant or a nightclub. Rule number 1, don't hide under the tables.
A lot of times people go underneath the table. Well, that doesn't get you away from the shooter. That just gives them easy place for you to be shot.
Come on, get out of here. Hit that door.
Instead, Jim says, run as fast as you can to the nearest exit. Get yourself out of the shooter's line of sight. Zigzag as you run, making yourself a difficult target to hit. Should the attack happen outside, run behind cars, behind trucks, behind signs. Use the natural cover the street provides you.
In an area like this, there is cover. There are cars, there are shops, there are places for us to go.
And finally, if there's just no place to go, Napolitano says your last best option is to team up and gang up on the attacker, focusing on getting his weapon away.
He's attacking other people. We have the chance. We're going to go in and attack this weapon. Go. We're going to go in and push it down and get it away from him.
Always remember, the worst thing you can do is nothing. Then you're just waiting to be shot.
Now, you should know that our expert, Jim Napolitano, has trained top-level federal agents in the art of escaping and in survival. Remember, a moving target is much harder to hit, even for a professional marksman. And if you can throw something at the gunman, that's even better.
All right, Bill, thank you. All good advice.
Thank you.
Okay. So, there's a lot there to unpack. Oops, come on, camera. There's a lot there to unpack. I think it's really important to show both of the trainings, because one is for children, but one is for adults. And, some people don't have kids and don't care, which I think is horrible, but some people really only will think about it if it is possible it could pertain to them. So then there's a lot of things in there that are very interesting, things that I did not know, things that I was very shocked by, and then things that are what I'm already preaching to my children about how to protect themselves at school. They say, of course, the worst thing to do is nothing. Make sure you keep moving. I will say that I think that the videos, like kind of Angie alluded to earlier, they show it in slow motion while there's no panic, right? The training isn't real time. I think if they ever released the videos like that were in real time, I think it would be perhaps too shocking for people to consider. But it's important that they show you a demonstration that is calm and without panic, because you need to respond calmly without panicking. I think it's kind of the mentality here. If you're panicking, you're not going to help anyone. And if you're not moving, you're just waiting to die, essentially is what the experts say.
The thing that I need to, I wanted to address, and I'm not trying to play devil's
Oh,
advocate.
please. That's what this is a great podcast for.
Those things that they were saying always keep. The first thing is the school system going to have the funding to provide all the schools in their area? It is the school system's job, not that teacher's job, number one. Number two, they're telling you to knock out those windows. Number one, they tell you to go out the window. 90% of the windows nowadays don't open.
Mhm.
And when you go to hit them, they're double paned.
With the wires running through them and everything.
And then some of them are even bulletproof. So how do you get through the tempered glass? You can't break that tempered glass.
I think
And
they're
so
saying if it's an option to do it.
now a lot of this falls also on here in Tennessee, we have what is it called, SRO offices. And our issue has been there's not enough funding in the budget to provide SRO officers for all the schools and provide protection for the community. And I think that is the issue with a lot of communities. The other one is when I was growing up, we had community meetings. We had parent teacher meetings. We talked about issues. We raised money to do things. Because when my kids were in school, they thought I was a teacher. I was at school so much trying to help find ways to raise money for the school.
Right.
And if the community does not jump in and stop saying, if everybody just stops saying, is your job, it is not. It's
Stop passing the
our
buck.
job.
Everyone's
It's
job.
our job.
Mhm.
And it never becomes our job until one of ours get hurt. And that's not correct because you can prevent one of yours from being hurt if you work together. Okay, that's my spiel.
No, you're totally right. I mean, when I was at the PTA, when I was there doing my service there, originally the teachers only got like $300 for the full school year to spend in their classroom.
Still do.
And
Still do.
that includes having to pay for buses. Okay. So it's like
Now
nothing.
think about it. They have just dismantled the Department of Education. A lot of the schools, one of the schools said they had lost over $1 billion in grants and scholarships. So now if we've lost the Department of Education, where most of our money is coming from, if we want this to work, we're gonna have to figure out a way to raise money, which is going to be hard because Elon Musk just laid off 6,000 people. You got stores closing. So your unemployment rate is going to be really high. So as a collective, we're going to have to come together and find a creative way to protect. We can't just lay down and give up because people around us don't know any better. It would be an extreme issue if there was an active shooting in the White House.
Oh yeah, I mean it's absolutely. I mean, anytime there's that, it's.
I mean, I
always
know. I'm sorry. That's a soapbox. I'm sorry.
But it's very true, right? So in Albuquerque, we have Albuquerque Public Schools (APS). They have their own police force. They somehow, well, amongst all the corruption over the last many decades, we're able to organize the police force, and we have our own police force. Now, my interactions with the police force have been hit or miss, but they are oftentimes found on campuses and either walking campus or at campus, and are first to respond right along with our local law enforcement departments when there are situations. So there's that. But it's very true. Like if schools can't afford things and teachers and administrators are retiring in mass or quitting in mass, and now that special ed and a lot of other programs are getting defunded within the Department of Education, people are losing their jobs. Right now, in my daughter's health class at high school at freshman level, there's like over 40 people in her class, in one class with one teacher, no assistants or interns or just one teacher. And over 40
Same
kids.
here. Same here.
So, we have to be prepared for the worst, but hope for the best when we're talking about education. Our teachers have to be prepared because gun violence and active shooters are still a threat to our schools. They went ahead and fenced in all the schools here in Albuquerque. So you can't get in unless you cut the fence or scale the fence. And then there's a lot of now layers of protection to be able to get into buildings. So it's almost like our kids are going to jail every day, but they have to learn in that environment. So even though they're doing all these things to help prevent it, it has not stopped mass shootings from occurring in schools. So we still have to prepare our teachers. We have to prepare our students and do our best to respond the fastest and most efficient way possible to save as many lives and neutralize the threat. That is all we can do. As far as raising more money for more programs, for more education, that is something that is perhaps going to be eventually levied on the taxpayers now that so many things have been cut. Local municipalities are going to levy taxes and raise those to help offset now the loss that many schools are going to be in, including Title IX schools that rely on free lunches, that rely on these programs that are free for children, especially children who need supplemental education.
I got a question for you though. What if, now maybe this might be a far-fetched idea, but in my devil advocacy, remember I was talking about how the buildings being constructed and it's not conducive for quick getaway. So what if there was someone that maybe will volunteer, that this is their specialty? They'll go, because facilities management, they have these organizations that will go around and they assess the building. They assess how what structures need to be done, and you get graded on it. So what if we had organizations that would go to the schools and assess what needs to be fixed, done, or helped? They did that at TSU because we had a shooting, and they had to come out, and I think it was the police department or someone came out, and they assessed the campus, and they did a written report, and we had to correct those things. So maybe, even though that's time consuming, maybe we could get together and find a way to assess those buildings. Because even though we are putting out saying we can do all those things, if those buildings are not structured so that you can do it, then it's kind of in vain. At least maybe I'm thinking wrong.
So I will say that every single building, public building, I mean, even homes, right? So even residential homes, they don't necessarily have to be public buildings, but any structure in the United States must pass a fire code and a building code. So there are within our municipalities, there are codes and there's code enforcement. So there are people who go out to these structures as they're being built, and then again, as things evolve within the building's lifetime, there are code inspectors that go out to these buildings and assess them for things like the ability to evacuate people safely, the risk of fire, the risk of collapse, the risk of damage, the risk of loss of human life. Because if there was an event like a fire, right, and every single school and every single public building should have an evacuation code and an evacuation map posted and an inspection by a fire marshal that has come and cleared the building, so that the building structure is up to date for code, and the fire marshal has come in and said, yes, people inside this building can evacuate safely. This falls over into an evacuation for gun violence or evacuation for active shooter. The only difference is if the evacuation points are where the active shooter is. But usually there are multiple evacuation exits within a building. There have to be by law. So when you go, say, for example, to a movie theater, there are exits that have the bright red lights above it that say exit. There are evacuation signs posted. When you go to a hotel room, when you close the door, the first thing you see is your evacuation map if you had to evacuate that hotel room. So these
Don't
buildings,
forget now, don't forget that's per state. And like I said, I just retired from 22 years at Tennessee State. And we did have fire marshals come out. Out of all those years, they had not ever had no fire marshal had ever said anything about us not having evacuation maps up. Finally, we got one that did. Put them up, great. But as
Well, I
far
mean,
as
the bureaucracy of the government, right? Like
yes,
you
and see
can't
that's the
rely on
sad
everyone
part.
doing their.
We that's the sad part. I know for a fact we've had people get trapped up on upper floors because the elevator wasn't working. And
Right.
not because there was an issue, but if you can't get down just because there is a malfunctioning elevator, what happens when there's a fire? And according to the codes, all our buildings were up to code. It wasn't
No, you're
until
totally right. You're absolutely right.
and it's never until a person go to the feds and complain that we're not in compliance. We never had to do any of that for your disabled until somebody went and complained. And it's
Now,
sad.
normally when you go to apply for a business license for that municipality to give you a business license, you have to show a bunch of things. And generally, that is something that you have to show. So I don't know how it works in everyone's city or everyone's state, but generally, if you're going to own a business and it's going to be open to the public, there is a list of things you must do as a business owner. And usually having some sort of code enforcement proof is one of them, especially if you own the building and or build the building. You must have code enforcement come because the ADA also comes, the American with Disability Act. You also have to have ADA approved spaces like you were talking about, the bathroom stalls, right? So you have to do all these things and make sure things are up to code. You even have to do that in your home, like your own personal residence that you own. If you want to build, an extension on your house, you have to go to the city and apply for a building permit. And then you have to have a building inspector come out and inspect what you did and sign off on it. Like so there's all these things, but a lot of this is just knowledge people just don't know or they don't care. But either way, the goal of this podcast is to bring about some of these basic things and to talk about things that people maybe don't know or don't consider or haven't in the past. But those are all really important things to look at. Where are my exits? And what is my plan if I am in an event with an active shooter? So you need to, maybe go back and watch the YouTube videos, whoever's maybe watching this later or watching this, on YouTube, go and watch those videos and watch them again because it's important that we remember and we remind ourselves, how can I protect myself and the people I'm with if I'm out in public and there's an active shooter, or if I'm in my car, or if I'm in my home, like how do I do that? And I think today where there was a lot of nuggets of information that we can draw on to do that. But ultimately, mass shootings are not going to stop. Gun violence is not going to stop because people are not sick and tired of being sick and tired yet. And so we're going to have to keep doing this podcast and talking about this. If you're as sick and tired as I am about talking about gun violence, then we welcome you to come on the show and come and talk. And if you have an opposing opinion, we welcome discourse, but it must be civil and it must be respectful if you're going to come in here and do that. So the next podcast will be Saturday, May 12th. It is going to be, May has 5 Saturdays. So it's going to be the second Saturday, not the first Saturday. And that is because I have an event on the 1st May. But we are going to talk about the technology of the trigger. We're going to start breaking apart the ins and outs of a gun. So, for example, when I showed you the video today about the Las Cruces shooting, and those kids with those assault style rifles with flashlights on them, using the flashlights to light up the tires. This is what I'm talking about. We don't need any bells and whistles. No more sparkle shit on guns, please. It is not what we do not need extra. It's like the sweet flavored of vapes for teens. We don't need that, please. Yes, Angie.
And the other side of that too is, they have, well, I don't know about anywhere else, but I know here they have gun shows.
Oh yeah, they're everywhere. And gun shows is another thing we're going to be covering on this podcast because it does tie into guns and entertainment, which we are going to be covering here in a future podcast. But come back Saturday, May 12th, 12 p.m. Eastern. Excuse me. Saturday, May 12th, 12 p.m. Eastern. We'll cover the technology of the trigger. I do thank you so much, and Williams Brown. I like to say And Artemis Craig, thank you so much for coming and being part of our discussion today. I hope you all stay safe.
Hey, wait before you go. I need to, if there's a way, I would like to put what I did out there because I made sure I had a lot of resources and it has a lot of information trying to help active shootings in schools.
So here's what I'm gonna do
Mhm.
so I'm gonna turn it over to you. You're the host.
No, no, no,
So
no. You have a lot, you have something else to do.
yes,
So just let me tell me how to
you just do
I'll
your
send it
thing.
to you and you can just put it wherever you want it.
No. Click at the bottom. There's the share screen. You click the share screen and you can share whatever it is that you brought. And I would love to have that be on the podcast. And then we can you can continue and you don't have to feel rushed to finish. And
No, I
then when
don't
you are
want to do
finished,
that to you.
no, it's totally fine. When you are finished, so go through, take your time. It's okay. When you are finished, just click end and that's it, and it will
Can you
stop
see my
everything.
screen?
Yes, we got it. Okay, take it over.
Okay, let me make sure that's the beginning. Okay, this is starting with, I just wanted to, yeah, I was just fascinated at the fact that this has been going on for a very long time. We've been having these school shootings way back since 1853. And then you got in 2000, a 6-year-old getting pissed and shoot classmate. And in one of those instances, they shot the teacher too. And you would think they would have done something by then. And I went through the laws. This is just a set of the laws. And can we see how many laws have not been changed in in this last decade? And it's we can't fix it if the government is not helping us. And I don't really think that we're ever going to fix this gun situation until they go in and make an amendment to that right to bear arms. If they don't amend that, there's nothing we can do. These are still some of the things that haven't been changed. And in a lot of cities, you don't have to have background checks. And even when you do, you got people that go and buy guns for other people. And these are things that have been changed. And if you watch, there are more things not changed than things changed. And these are the ones, the laws that have changed by states. Those are the ones that I could find that have really made true changes. And I was happy to see that Tennessee has started making a lot of changes. But like one of the things that I don't like is I'm not sure what drunk person decided it was okay to take a loaded pistol in a bar. That didn't make sense to me. And then as far as reform is concerned, at first you couldn't take a gun on the state premises. Now you can take a gun on state premises. That's if you're an employee. Students are not supposed to have guns on campus, but they do. Okay. Um, you never, why would you want to put your why would you want to put your teachers in the position where they have to have a gun? Now, I don't know about you all, but I do know that some children make you want to kill them. You never want to do it. I've seen where they have had to call the police in on kindergarten kids because they're so irate and berserk. And we're not educating our parents. There's a new gun lock they've been advertising where it fixes where you cannot get that trigger cannot be pulled unless it's unlocked in a special way. And if everybody would be required to use that, it would be great. These are some of the ways that they were trying to show about doing for your schools. The metal detectors, the only problem with that is kids watch TV and they put too many things on TV, not just shows, but they do it in documentaries. In documentaries, they show how your criminals got over. There are too many things that you can wrap guns in that the metal detector cannot see. So that doesn't always work. Plus, you have to always have those metal detectors. I know that for a fact, that you have to have them constantly maintenance at least once a month, because if you don't, they can malfunction. And they've had that happen at Tennessee State, and there was a shooting. But you have to always remember there is always an inside person that knows what's happening and what's not happening. This talks about the mental aspect of the guns and the schools. There are a lot of kids that, yes, they're mentally disturbed. And by ratio, we don't have enough counselors for our students. And I picked Columbine because it was one of the most prolific. These kids were highly intelligent, but they were being bullied by the teachers because they're getting money for these kids. So they went off the deep end and they killed themselves too. They kill all these people and kill themselves too. So they're trying to come up with ways to see if you can have precursors to tell if there's an issue going on with the kid, that you may be able to now, for whatever reason, kids will have left school 10 years and then I don't know, something happened, they have a flashback and then they go shoot up the school. Maybe that could have been prevented if it was paid attention to when they were in school. Like I said before, okay, when I look at this one, I do it from experience because my son-in-law was killed by a policeman. I saw the effect it took on my daughter. I saw the effect it took on his family. I saw the effect it took on me. But above all, I saw the effect that it took on my 13-year-old grandson. And somebody in their stupidity sent the video of my son-in-law being shot to my grandson, who was ADHD, borderline defiance disorder. They sent this to this boy until we caught him looking at it. And he had been watching it over and over for hours. They sent him out the end. And the only thing brought that boy back was prayer. I can tell you that. God is good because he's 21. He's in college. He's got his head on straight. And he goes to church religiously. So when they do the active shooting, you're shooting up a whole community. You're not just shooting a building. You're shooting a whole community. And sometimes these things don't go away. The memory, you cannot take away a memory as much as we wish. So that's my take on that. I do feel like that there should be more emphasis put on the outcome of the community and the families and of those victims. It should be way more resources and way more ways to help them, because the shooting is over. We've cleaned up the school. Everybody's back to normal, except the family, the friends, and the community it affected. And we don't put them into the equation. Okay, that's just long-term effects. That's my conclusion. And I mostly wanted to get those resources out there. There are resources, but people don't know where they are. And this is just some articles that I ran across that I felt like everybody needed to read. They didn't need to watch this. They need to read it and absorb it. And that's all I have. I really wanted to share it. Wait a minute, am I still sharing? Have I stopped sharing my screen? Thanks. Oops, I got it right. No, I didn't get it right. Yeah. That's the only reason I really wanted to share that, because I felt like there was information that it really made me stop in my tracks, seeing some of those statistics. And here we are at 2025, and it's been going on since 1893. Okay, we can understand why that didn't happen, why they didn't fix that. But for it to start in 2000, come on now. We went from 20th century to the 21st century with no fix. And it's not getting better. It is getting worse, because you can buy what it is in some places automatics are legal. In other places, semi-automatics are what you can have. But everybody knows that you can transform a semi-automatic into an automatic. In some states, Alabama, you've always been able to have a concealed weapon. You just had to have a permit. Now they're requiring you for it to be unconcealed. But in some states, you can walk with hip holsters. I've seen policemen with those hip holsters. They have hip holsters like gunfight at the OK Corral. And they think it's okay, it's cute. Guns are cute until you shoot somebody and you sitting in somebody's jail for life, or somebody shoot you. So that's my spiel. You can go and say whatever you need to say, Marissa. I'm done. I think Marissa has left the building. I think she and Elvis is out playing somewhere. What you think? So I suppose that seeing how Marissa has disappeared on us, that I'm supposed to keep talking to you. Oh, so now you unmute.
Whoopsie.
You can unmute now. We're at the end of the show, so
I
you can
figured it
unmute.
out. I figured it out. This a new phone, and I'm still learning.
Oh crap. My phone update. Oh yeah, that's right. You got one of those weird phones. What they call them phones? Them iPhones? Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
you got one of those weird phones. Androids, they update. I believe they update once a month, and they update so much that even though you can have the first generation, and they'll update your information, all of the thing, and you don't have to get a new one until that one dies. Because I kept my phone until it went to phone hell.
Oh my.
It went kicking, screaming, but I couldn't help the baby. We used to have to say ashes to ashes, dust to dust to my baby. But I saved all the information. That's all they cared. Once I saved all the information, they went on to cremated. It was good. I don't know where Marissa went.
Well, we can end it. She says when you're done with your presentation, we can end it.
Okay, but see, I know she usually has some more thoughts. And I didn't want to end it without her having her final thoughts. But what I can use do the final thoughts. What I can say is that gun violence is not going to stop until our government stop with that putting their head in the sand like an ostrich, pretending like they don't see. Until we stop this buddy system. Because just like with the codes that we were talking about, I know for a fact, a lot of times people are that this is their alma mater, and they give them a break. And that's not good, because they don't follow the rules thoroughly, because they're giving my friend, my family, this my alma mater, they giving them a break. And they don't realize that they're hurting until we are hurt. It's too late. And if we don't come together as a community, Yeah, I get that they're dismantling everything. I get that all the money is going away. I get that, I don't know, the word recession and depression may become synonymous with each other, but we still gonna have to come together as a community and come up with some creative ways. If we do not bond together, the same way they're bonding together and protesting against our current president, the same way they're doing anthologies against our current government, if we don't pull together and do that against gun violence, we're lost. And that's it for my. Do you have anything, Miss Artemis?
I would just like to thank you for having me on the podcast. It was very enlightening, and I look forward to the other podcasts along these lines so that I can get more information.
Yeah, because
Thank you for having me.
active shooting can be anywhere. You're not even safe at home anymore.
No.
Yeah. With that, I hope everyone will come to our next one, which is May 12th. I look forward to it, and I hope we can be more informative. Y'all go on and have yourself a great weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.